It's one of the most competitive races in the country.
We have the opportunity to reset expectations about what people think when they look at Kansas.
She does not share the values or the beliefs of the 3rd Congressional District.
This hour, we bring you Davids versus Adkins.
Most people don't feel like they're better off today.
There are a lot of things that I've been able to do that I think people have appreciated.
From the studios of Kansas City PBS, it's the Kansas 3rd District Congressional Debate, co-presented by the Shawnee Mission Post and KCUR News. And now, here's your debate moderator, Nick Haynes.
Hello and welcome. You've seen their yard signs, you've seen their political ads, and chances are good you probably had a couple of text or robotic voice messages from them asking you for cash or support. Now it's time to see them debate. Sharice Davids and Amanda Adkins are with us in what will be the most unscripted hour of this entire congressional campaign. And if you've heard the expression, 2 heads are better than 1, how about 3 heads? We're pleased to be partnering with the Shawnee Mission Post and KCUR News in presenting this debate. The Post's Carl Palmer is with us to question our candidates, as is Lisa Rodriguez, news director at our NPR affiliate. For the last 4 years, Democrat Sharice Davids has represented the Kansas 3rd District in Washington. Does she deserve another 2 years on Capitol Hill? Amanda Adkins says no. She's a former vice president at Cerner and is the Republican candidate in this race. You both have 60 seconds to give us a sense of why you're running in the very first place here. But let's look here. I'm looking at our schedule. Sharice Davids, you go first here. We have to understand that you've done it for 2 years. What have you actually done for us over the last 2 years, and what can we expect of you in the next 2 years?
Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks to our moderators and really everybody who came together to make this debate happen. You know, for folks who don't already know, my mom raised me and my brothers. I worked my way from as a first-generation college student from Johnson County Community College to Cornell for law school and got the chance to serve in the White House. And, you know, Kansans come together and work together to solve tough problems, and that's exactly what I have been focused on, like getting relief to our families when we were in the darkest days of the pandemic, like passing the largest trade deal in a generation and making sure that Medicare finally has the right to negotiate prescription drug prices. And you know, my opponent has a different set of ideas. You know, she has aligned herself with extremists who call the results of our elections into question, would decimate Social Security and Medicare, and support a total ban on abortion without exceptions. You know, those are not the kind of approaches that are going to work for us. And I'm going to work with anyone and listen to everyone.
And your time is up. Thank you so much indeed. Amanda Adkins, you were together on the ballot 2 years ago. You came up short then. Why get in this race again this time around? And what are you going to do differently than Sharice Davids over the next 2 years?
Nick, I have a simple question that I have asked people in the 3rd Congressional District for the last 2 years. And it takes me back to my childhood and a great president in Ronald Reagan, and that is, are you better off today? And I consistently hear from people crossing the 3rd Congressional District, individuals, families, businesses, that they are not. All you have to do is look at record 40-year highs in inflation. People are suffering. Now we have interest rates that are rising. We are entering a recession, and that is all due to the bad policies on the part of President Joe Biden, and Sharice Davids has voted for it 100% of the time. I am first and foremost a business leader. I'm a problem solver. I am somebody in this community who is focused on results. I've focused on results. I've focused on doing good things for kids and for families. And I'm here today to expose her record, which has been bad.
And you're going to have plenty of time to do that because your time is up. We're going to get to questions, starting with Lisa Rodriguez from KCUR News.
Thanks, Nick. With the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade earlier this year, abortion rights have come to the fore of this year's midterm election. In August, voters in Kansas, including a clear majority of voters in the 3rd District, rejected the Value Them Both Amendment, which would have stripped a right to abortion from the state constitution. So what is your position on the current state of abortion access in America, and what national policies on abortion would you like to see Congress pursue?
Amanda Adkins, 60 seconds.
I have been very, very clear on this issue. With the decision that was made by the Supreme Court, the Dobbs decision, abortion policy is now a state-level issue. I strongly, strongly believe that decision-making needs to happen very, very close to the people. The people in the state of Kansas have already spoken, and I have said, because I believe it is a state-level issue and I believe in federalism, that Congress does not have a role here. And as such, I do not support a congressional ban on abortion. My opponent, in comparison, and Joe Biden, want to make it a federal issue. She supports taxpayer dollars being used for abortion. She supports very painful late-term partial abortion. And I know in this election cycle, more important, people in this community are focused on the economy. When I go out in neighborhoods, they're not talking to me about abortion. They're saying, Amanda, I can no longer afford a carton of eggs because it's double the price.
We will pick that up again when you have your rebuttal, but we want to hear from Sharice Davids. 60 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. Look, when Roe was overturned, folks were scared. And I know tons of people right here at home had anxiety. We watched as our neighboring states were passing these extreme laws. And I have been very clear since the first time that I spoke on this. I am pro-choice, and I will always fight to protect a woman's right to choose and make sure that politicians are not the ones making these decisions for you. Look, my opponent has, the issue isn't her specific stance that she's pro-life. It's that we really can't trust her on these issues. You know, she, on her website, supports an agenda that would lead to a total ban with no exceptions, not for rape, not for incest, or the life of the mother. And, your answer seems to change depending on who the audience is. And frankly, it's very concerning, and I think says a lot about what kind of representative you would be.
You have 30 seconds to rebut, Amanda Atkins.
Ms. Davids, your comments are dishonest. I have been very, and deceptive. I have been I am a pro-life candidate. I have been pro-life my entire life, but I have been very clear. I've now been interviewed almost 15 times in media on this issue, and I have said the federal government does not have a role, and I therefore do not believe that the federal government should push a congressional ban on abortion. And I would just add, people in this district have already spoken, and I respect the voice of people in this district.
Sharice Davids, last word.
Yeah, look, I would just encourage folks to go to my opponent's website and look at the legislative agenda that she has endorsed. It includes a total abortion ban. And, I will always fight to protect people from having politicians, whether they're state politicians or federal politicians, from making your healthcare decisions for you.
Let's move to another issue, and Kyle Palmer of the Shawnee Mission Post has that question.
Thank you, Nick. There's been no evidence of widespread voter fraud, and dozens of lawsuits challenging the 2020 election results have been dismissed for lack of evidence. Yet former President Trump and many of his allies continue to insist the election was stolen from him, and this has become a barometer of sorts for many voters wanting to know whether you believe the former president's unsubstantiated claims. Do you accept Joe Biden as the legitimately elected president of the United States, and are you confident in the integrity of our nation's election system?
That starts with Sharice Davids.
Yeah, thank you so much. Look, our democracy and free and fair elections are the bedrock of this country. I have said time and time again that any attempts by electeds or candidates to undermine the integrity of our elections, it's a dangerous move, and yes, I do believe that we have a legitimately elected president. It shouldn't be controversial and it doesn't take a lot of guts to say that. But I will tell you that I have been very concerned about my opponent's alignment with some of the most extreme voices in the current Republican Party. Look, Ted Cruz was just here. He is one of the top election deniers in this country, the fact that she is most proud of having Calvin Hayden's endorsement, who has wasted Johnson County taxpayer dollars on baseless conspiracy theory investigations, is absolutely one of the most concerning things.
Your time is up. By the way, Calvin Hayden, the Johnson County Sheriff. Amanda Atkins.
There you go again, Ms. Davids. I have publicly stated that I believe Joe Biden won this election. I also have publicly stated a strong belief system in our U.S. Constitution that our states should run elections. The state of Kansas, here's the great news for our voters. Our state election laws are very, very strong. We have a great system of checks and balances in the state that I strongly believe in. My opponent, by comparison, supports legislation like H.R. 1, the so-called For the People Act, that would nationalize elections. Again, I believe in Kansas election laws. And it would do things like create an election czar, as if the federal government is not already big enough, and pour public money into campaigns at a time when we are already stretched far too thin.
Sharice Davids, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel like we have to acknowledge that it took almost 20 months for my opponent to acknowledge that we had a legitimate 2020 election. And I appreciate my opponent standing here today saying that she thinks that we have quality, safe, fair elections here in Kansas. I just wish that she wasn't aligning herself with someone who continues to call those into question.
Final word to you, Amanda Adkins.
I find it interesting that she talks about alignment. Ms. Davids, I would really know. You should comment on it over the course of this debate. Have you ever not voted with Joe Biden? I think public record shows that you have voted with Joe Biden 100% of the time, and yet here, just in the last week, there are members of his administration who came to this community and you wouldn't show up with them. So I find it very interesting that you've tried to hide from your affiliation with our president, and I know why, because his record, particularly as it relates to the economy, is a disaster.
Your time is up there. I know you'll find ways of weaving it in later, but anyway, on the economic front, let's talk about that. We're told wages are not keeping pace with inflation. Interest rates are rising. The stock market is in free fall. Supply chains remain in flux. And with winter approaching, Americans are preparing to face sky-high home heating bills. Starting with you, Amanda Adkins, what's the single biggest action you will take in Congress to help your constituents pad their pocketbooks or lower their household bills?
Nick, the single greatest issue that I hear in the 3rd Congressional District is how worried people are about inflation. We know that in the 3rd Congressional District that right now, families at current inflation levels are being hit roughly on average. It's a hit of $8,700 in negative expense per year. They're paying that amount of money for the same goods and services. Families cannot afford that. My opponent has directly contributed to it. Multiple examples, but the big one, she voted for the American Rescue Plan in spring of 2021 and was warned by left-wing economists, people like Larry Summers, that it would directly contribute to inflation. Here we're at today. I, by contrast, am for a balanced budget and getting this country back to a surplus. We need to stop the reckless spending. That's point one. We need to actually move toward continuing to reduce the deficit in this country, and we need to commit to a balanced budget.
Thank you. And Sharice Davids' plan is what?
Yeah, thank you so much. Look, absolutely. Things have been really hard from the public health crisis that led to an economic crisis. I'm hearing it from folks. It makes me think of, my mom raised me and my brothers by herself. That anxiety of not being sure if you're going to be able to put gas in your car, put food on the table is absolutely real. It's why I have focused on things like a federal gas tax holiday that would mean an 18 cents per gallon savings. When you're filling up your tank multiple times a week, that makes a huge difference. On things like making sure we're making more here and not in places like China. And, my opponent has it is actually hard to take her position seriously when I know that she was a senior aide to Sam Brownback as he decimated our state's budget, destroyed our public education system, and downgraded our credit rating as a state.
You have a chance to rebut for 30 seconds, Amanda Adkins.
Here's my comment to Ms. Davids. While you have contributed to the problem, decimated our economy, highest level of inflation in 20 years, increasing interest rates, a recession that we're either already in or looming, the time period she's talking about, interestingly enough, I was building business in this community and country. I was part of building some of the new business areas at Cerner that contributed to growth, hiring people in this community, and I did so for 15 plus years. I'm very proud of that work in business and in healthcare. Problem solver, that is me, business builder.
Sharice Davids.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to turn really quickly to something that my opponent has said a couple of times, which is, she likes to cite statistics about voting with the president, which he, by the way, is not in the House and doesn't vote. But that's based on less than 10% of the votes I've taken this Congress. I haven't heard her mention the 70% or the 70% of my bills are bipartisan. And I have worked on unsticking our supply chains through bipartisan infrastructure investments, and I'll continue to do the exact same thing.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to fresh territory now with Lisa Rodriguez from KCUR.
Thanks, Nick. The number of people trying to cross America's southern border illegally has skyrocketed to record highs this year. What's your view on the state of immigration in the United States, and what federal immigration policies do you support?
And that starts with you, Sharice Davids, for 60 seconds.
Yeah, thank you so much. Look, our immigration system is broken, and this has been a problem for too long. What we really need is bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform. I have worked as hard as I can to find that agreement, and we have been able to support. I have supported getting additional funding to secure our borders. Whether it's the technology that will help make us not only more effective but more efficient. And I also think that we need to make sure we're keeping our promises to our dreamers, for instance. People need to be treated as the humans they are. And on immigration, my concern is that my opponent is not going to take a bipartisan approach. And I was so disappointed last time around when she failed to stand up to the former president when he was taking kids away from their families.
Amanda Adkins.
Our border is not secure, and it's an absolute disaster. My opponent has not been to the southern border. I have. The reason why I went is because I know from my conversations with our sheriffs and with Attorney General, or our district attorney, Steve Howe, who is a supporter of mine, that where we have crime in this community, underlying it is always about drugs. I went down to the southern border because I wanted to hear firsthand what is going on. Here's what I heard, and it is directly the result of the poor policies of the Biden administration, which Ms. Davids has supported. 1, our border is open. 2, the cartels have built a multi-billion-dollar industry in smuggling people and drugs across the border. And 3, we have a humanitarian crisis that nobody is talking about. I believe we need to have a physical wall in some areas. By the way, my opponent, Ms. Davids, has voted against that. She's voted against that. I do believe we need to have high-tech surveillance in combination with that. And we need to support our border patrol agents. And by the way, Ms. Davids has publicly stated previously that she wants to defund ICE.
Thank you so much. Sharice Davids, you have a chance to rebut.
Thank you. Well, I'll follow that up with talking about the things that I have voted to support, like increasing the technology at the border, because not only do we need to be effective, we need to be efficient with our taxpayer dollars. That's why I've supported policies like that. I also want to take issue with the fact that every time the issue of immigration and fixing our immigration system comes up, it's really disappointing to hear my opponent just regurgitate Republican talking points.
Thank you very much. The last word goes to you, Amanda Adkins.
I would just ask Ms. Davids, maybe she can comment on this in a future question. Our Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, has repeatedly said that the southern border is secure. I just want to hear when she is going to actually refute that, because in fact, as I said earlier, it is not. People are suffering humanitarian crisis. The border is not secure. And by the way, our border agents have a message for you, and that is they can't believe that you voted for $80 billion in money for more IRS agents, and yet they are not backed up. The message from the sheriff down there is no end in sight.
Thank you so much. We go from the border. Take us somewhere new, Kyle Palmer, with the Shawnee Mission Post.
The Congressional Budget Office estimates that within the next decade, the Social Security program will be paying out more money than it is taking in. What would be your approach to address this looming issue?
Amanda Adkins.
Sure, I'm happy to start. First of all, I think it is important for us to be transparent with the American people that there is a looming crisis as it pertains to Social Security. If we do nothing over the course of the next 10 years, then people can expect that there would be as much as a 22% cut. That is a real problem. Because of that, there are a couple of things that I think that we need to do. One, as somebody who's worked in business, I think that we need to increase the number of people who are paying into the system. I've released a plan related to women who want to re-enter the workforce, particularly post-COVID. I also do believe, Ms. Davids, that immigration can and should be a workforce issue. I want people to come to this country. They need to do so in the right way. They need to do so legally. Finally, commitment that I make to people who are either at retirement or near, people who are age 50 and up, we have to protect and preserve their benefits as they currently stand today. That is my commitment to seniors in this country.
Sharice Davids.
Yeah, thank you so much. Look, I have always said the federal government needs to keep its promises. And, Social Security is something that is one of those promises. People work their entire adult lives paying into Social Security. And we need to make sure that we're managing the Social Security program in an effective way. And I actually, this is one of those areas I like the idea of us getting more people into the workforce. It's why I support our small business community. They're the backbone of our economy and the reason that we have the kind of job growth that we have. And I'm concerned because my opponent, again, go to our website. She supports a legislative policy that would decimate Social Security and Medicare.
Ms. Davids, once again, very, very deceptive in your comments, as I actually just articulated a plan. I have made very clear comments on how we bring more people into this country through the immigration process legally to be part of our workforce. I also have a full plan in bringing more women back into the workforce, both of which I think are important. Ms. Davids, interestingly enough, the only comment that I've heard from you on what the solution is previously is that we need to have yet another czar over Social Security, which just tells me and the people here in the 3rd Congressional District that Congress, that leaders like you want to kick the can down the road versus take responsibility.
And that's how much time you have. And Amanda Adkins, you get the last word on the Social Security question. Sorry, Sharice Davids. Yes, of course you are. Thank you. You're paying attention. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Look, I know that I'm sorry I was just laughing because I want to say something very serious here, which is that my opponent is, she keeps using this word deceptive when I want people to go to her website and look at the legislative plan, the plan that she has endorsed that would decimate Social Security and force people to work many more years.
And that is as much time as you have. And that is, Sharice Davids, enough time. I get to ask a question, which is really, and this is going to go to you first, Sharice Davids. What, in your view, is the biggest single threat facing America? If you're elected to Congress for the next 2 years, what would you do to lessen that threat?
Yeah, thank you. I think that, well, first of all, it's been, my mom was in the Army. My grandfather was in the Army. My mom was stationed actually in Germany when the Berlin Wall came down. So we were over there when that happened, and watching Vladimir Putin in an unprovoked and aggressive way invade a democratic sovereign state like Ukraine is it's truly alarming. And I think that we have got to make sure that we are continuing to stand with our allies on the world stage, which, by the way, would not have been possible under the previous president. We have got to make sure that we continue to impose strict sanctions on people like Vladimir Putin, because we have to make sure that we're protecting democracies. And I just think that the stakes couldn't be higher on watching what's happening over there.
And the biggest threat for Amanda Adkins is what?
While I appreciate the comments on global freedom, sadly, at this point in time, when I remember Ronald Reagan saying that this country should be a shining city on a hill. I grew up thinking about that. I grew up thinking about my own grandfather, who was a paratrooper in World War II, and what it meant to protect freedom. Here's the thing. The most important thing that this country can do to protect freedom is ensure, first and foremost, that we have a strong economy. And right now, we are in terrible shape, as I cited earlier. 40-year highs in terms of inflation. I have people who are calling my campaign office talking about the fact that they can't afford socks, let alone pay for eggs, which numbers have doubled in price. Everybody knows this if you're going to the grocery store. We have got to get back to managing our economy. And the only way that we're going to do that is for Washington to start solving problems again. We have to be fiscally prudent with our dollars and take very seriously that every dollar matters.
And that is as much time as you have on that. Sharice Davids, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to talk about the ways that we can make our economy stronger and set our kids up and grandkids for success. And you know, I think on this, when we talk about working together in a bipartisan way, my opponent absolutely would have been a vote against what the U.S. Chamber called the most fiscally responsible investment in infrastructure in decades. And if we want to talk about getting our economy back on track, maybe you should be looking to Kansas's own President Eisenhower and investing in infrastructure.
And the last word goes to you, Amanda Atkins.
Well, what's interesting about that is Ms. Davids knows that I come from a builder family. My father worked in heavy infrastructure for years, and I am first and foremost a huge proponent of infrastructure. I think it is a core responsibility of the federal government, in addition to things like national defense. I think we have to get back to solving problems in this country. And again, I'm going to cite, you're going to hear me say it over and over and over again in this debate. We are not in a great place when we have 40-year high inflation, interest rates that are rising, and we're in a recession. And it is directly the result of the bad policies of Joe Biden and Sharice Davids.
A brand new issue now from Lisa Rodriguez at KCUR.
Many cities across the United States are seeing rising rates of homicide and other violent crimes. What steps can the federal government take to help cities and counties reduce crime?
Amanda Atkins.
As I noted earlier, I'm fortunate that the sheriffs in this community and our district attorney are supporters of mine. Again, I'm going to go back to an earlier point that I made, that where violence and crime exists in this community, it is always underlying about drugs. District Attorney Steve Howe has said that too many times to count to me. In fact, he just said at a press conference with me that he's now seeing overdoses every single day related to fentanyl. We need to back up our police officers, to be sure. We need to back up our police officers having a strong relationship with our schools and with healthcare, for sure, especially when it comes to things like mental health. But I'm going to go back to my comments on the border. This country is not safe and secure if we cannot first and foremost secure our border. We do that with a physical wall, high-tech surveillance, backing up border agents, investment. Joe Biden has failed to do that. The sheriff I met with down at Brooks County looked at me and said, Amanda, where is the end in sight? I don't see it. Democrats have been leading, and they have failed on this issue. We need real solutions.
Sharice Davids, what are those real solutions?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I know people are scared of, for a lot of reasons, actually. Sometimes parents are scared to send their kids to school because they don't know if there's going to be a mass shooting incident, because those have become way too prevalent. I have done what I can to support legislation that would keep people safe from guns. We had the most meaningful bipartisan piece of legislation in over 2 decades just passed out of the House, the Senate, and the President signed it. And then, of course, yes, when it comes to sending the resources necessary to our local and state law enforcement, I have absolutely voted to do that, to get them not only the training, but the equipment necessary and the access to mental and behavioral health resources, and figure out ways to de-escalate situations when they're happening.
Amanda Atkins, 30 seconds to rebut.
Ms. Davids, it's very difficult to call yourself bipartisan when you voted with Joe Biden 100% of the time. By the way, your colleagues here in our own delegation would not call you bipartisan. And you're not a problem solver, because clearly right now, this community is facing serious problems. Again, starting with the economy, the number one thing that I hear about in this community. I'm going to go back, I'm going to say the same three things I said earlier. Highest levels of inflation, including an $8,700 hit to households in this community, interest rates rising,
Okay, we're going to have to wait on those other points because you're out of time. Sharice Davids, last word on crime.
Yeah, look, I think that, again, I would just point to my record. I have absolutely supported getting the resources. You know, in fact, I'm working on upgrading the Olathe Police Command Center right now, mobile command center, because I've been in contact and I'm talking to the people at the local and state level to make sure that from the federal perspective, we're getting them the resources that they need.
Kyle Palmer, a new question from you from the Shawnee Mission Post.
And this issue really just kind of came up in those last answers, but you will be representing one of the most moderate or so-called purple districts in the U.S. House. How will you try to be bipartisan in your approach to representing all the voters of the Kansas 3rd District?
And that goes to you first, Sharice Davids.
Yeah, thank you so much. Look, I have spent my time in Congress trying to figure out what are the issues we can come together on, and I've been able to do that. You know, actually just recently, Jerry Moran and I got a pretty cool piece of innovative legislation passed around advanced air mobility. Kansas has a huge opportunity when it comes to aviation and aerospace, partly based on our strong history there. I'm very concerned about my opponent's approach. I'm not sure I've heard anything come out of her mouth today that wasn't a national Republican talking point.
You have the opportunity to talk about how you are more bipartisan and would work in a purple state, Amanda Adkins.
Here's what people know about me in this community. Given my 20 years doing work in business for the community, work for at-risk kids and families, what they know about me is that when I see a problem in this community, I work to solve that problem. I'm a very independent thinker in many ways. And a lot of that, I have my own solutions. Ms. Davids has cited national Republicans. If you go to amandaadkins.com, you can find solutions that I've worked on in Britain based on my experiences in business and otherwise related to economic growth, the steps that we need to take. Energy security, an important issue we haven't touched on very much here yet, and how we get back to security in this country. Those are the areas of commitment that I am focused on in this campaign, and I'm willing to work with anybody to get to a solution.
30 seconds to rebut, Sharice Davids.
Yeah, thank you. I would just point to my record again. I have 70% of my bills are bipartisan. I am always here to, let me point to the last president. I did not agree with Donald Trump on very many things. But when we all came together, I was one of the Democrats that stayed at the table when we got the largest trade deal in a generation passed.
Amanda Adkins.
Again, I'm just going to point out that this country, the main reason why I made the decision to run again is that I knew, and I've heard from people in this district, that the trajectory that we are on is disastrous. And it is directly the result of some of the policies that Joe Biden has put forward, and people in this community are suffering as a result of those policies. And again, ultimately, this election cycle, what I hear in neighborhoods all the time at my Ask Amanda events is that the economy and inflation and interest rate growth, this is on the minds of people.
While we're told, of course, that the cost of living and inflation is the biggest issue on voters' minds, some political analysts claim that for many voters, education is the iceberg issue of this midterm election. Yet, for the most part, this is an issue for states and locally elected school boards. But what role, Amanda Adkins, if any, should Congress play in deciding how students are educated?
I believe first and foremost that education really is a workforce issue. I have children still in the home who are in their later years in high school. I have hired a lot of people in the workforce. Our education system needs to focus on preparing people for the workforce. I'm actually going to talk about one area that's been very topical of late, and that is President Biden's forgiveness of student loans, which I hear a lot about in the community. I want to be clear, again, here in this time period where we are in the midst of economic devastation, forgiving student loans and basically tacking on an additional $2,000 in expense to taxpayers is just not forgivable. Most people I talk to who show up at my events say, I didn't even go to college, Amanda, why should I have to pay for this? What we need to be focused on instead, and I'll comment specifically on post-secondary, there needs to be a transparent dialogue with our young people. What career are you trying to pursue? How much is it going to actually cost for you to be able to do that, if it's post-secondary or technical? And you need to be able to come out of it and not have a significant amount of debt. It's just that important in terms of where we head in the future.
Thank you very much. Let's hear from Sharice Davids on that same question.
Yeah, thank you. And absolutely, education is so important. And I think some of that is like right here in our community. It's extra topical because Kansas has a history of having great public education systems. You know, I got to graduate from Leavenworth High School, a great public education institution right here, and Johnson County Community College, one of the best community colleges in the country. And I absolutely think that we have to be supporting our young people. It is not the place of the federal government to dictate curriculum or any of that, but it is our place to make sure that we're getting the resources there. So there's broadband, so there's access to the technologies. But you know, on this specific issue, my opponent, we cannot trust her with our education. You know, being Sam Brownback senior aide, being there right by his side when they were decimating our public schools, they had to go down to 4-day weeks, I just don't think we can trust her on this issue.
Well, let's give Amanda Adkins a chance to respond.
Sure, Ms. Davids, again, very deceptive. People in this community know that I have spent the better part of 10 plus years doing work in the education space to help young people. In my free time, in addition to working in business and everything else, I actually started a philanthropy that is focused on offering scholarships to children in at-risk families in Wyandotte County, 3- and 4-year-olds, to ensure that they are healthy and that they can start school kindergarten ready. Because when I think about the continuum of the workforce, kids have to start school ready if someday they're going to be prepared to work for some of our greatest businesses.
Thank you. And the final word goes to you, Sharice Davids.
Yeah, thank you. During my opponent's time as the chair of the Children's Cabinet, the budget for that was decimated. And kids who are 3 and 4 shouldn't need scholarships to get access to any kind of education. We should be having early childhood education because that pays dividends in the future. If we're going to talk about having a workforce that's set up for success, we absolutely have to be investing in early childhood education and not 3- and 4-year-olds getting scholarships from one nonprofit.
We're ready to hear from Lisa Rodriguez now from KCUR.
We've got a straightforward one here. What is the federal government's role in mitigating the impacts of climate change?
And that goes to you first, Sharice Davids.
Okay, thank you. I mean, first of all, right here at home, I know that people outside the area might not think that we're thinking about this much, but I can tell you when we've got flooding, damaging and threatening the lives and livelihoods of people right here in the 3rd District, it's absolutely something that that people want to know that I'm focusing on. I have been proud to not only vote to get us back in the Paris Climate Accord, but also to make sure that we're helping our businesses. You know, wind energy, renewables are absolutely something that the market is deciding we're moving toward. We need to incentivize that movement. Wind energy is something in Kansas we've got a lot of potential for. And we need to make sure that utility bills are coming down. I have voted to do just that for low-income Kansans. And you're just not going to get the right approach from my opponent on this one.
How would your approach be different, Amanda Adkins?
Well, I am going to approach this from the perspective of energy security in this country, which I think is a topic that most people, again, are feeling, where they're feeling the pain around it. Joe Biden and Democrats in Congress have basically decimated our energy sector. Joe Biden sent a message. He pushed out an agenda for which this country was not prepared. And as a result of it, we have seen higher energy prices. I am a proponent for increasing domestic oil and gas production in this country. While people at the pump, the numbers are still up, they're not seeing it as much. Where we are having a lot of pain right now is in diesel. And so when you start talking about supply chain, you start talking about inflation, you start talking about the cost of goods, diesel is driving up a lot of that. But I want to make one additional comment in addition to being for more domestic oil and gas production, and that is I'm a proponent, I want to protect the environment too. People in this community do care about it. The most important step that we can take is increasing nuclear capacity in this country.
Thank you very much. You get 30 seconds to rebut, Sharice Davids.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's talk about energy security. I have already voted in ways that would decrease our reliance on foreign oil. I was one of the people that pushed back against my own party and encouraged the president to go back to using some of the refineries that went offline during the pandemic. Look, we need somebody from the 3rd District who's going to do what's right and stand up to whichever party they're from when necessary, and that's exactly what I'll continue to do.
Thank you very much. The last word, Amanda Adkins.
Yeah, Ms. Davids, once again, most people would say in this community that energy security is a mess right now. And again, I'm going to go back to people who are paying a lot more money for inflation. They know that the cost of diesel in this country, because Joe Biden sent a message send a message to investors. You shouldn't be investing in domestic oil and gas production. It has been absolutely destructive for this country. Just one last point I alluded to earlier, nuclear capacity. Right south of the 3rd Congressional District, we do have a nuclear plant. There are people in the district who live and work there.
Okay, we are out of time on that, and we move now to Kyle Palmer with the Shawnee Mission Post.
Another question regarding costs and touching upon inflation as well. Mortgage rates are going up, rent prices too. What role, if any, should Congress play to make housing more affordable?
Amanda Adkins?
Yes, I've heard a lot about housing from people in the district. Again, folks, the price of everything is going up right now. It's not just housing. I mean, people are feeling the pain across the board because of poor decisions that have been made by Washington, D.C. and by Joe Biden and that Ms. Sharice Davids has supported. And we need problem solving in Washington, D.C. right now. One of the reasons why housing is more expensive, if you're talking about new housing, again, we're getting back to transporting goods and the cost of energy in this country, which is a really big problem. Every single time I ask any business in any industry, why are you having issues right now? It all links back ultimately to the cost of energy.
Amanda Adkins, thank you so much. Sharice Davids, what is your fix for affordable housing?
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, actually, this is something that I know that folks have been struggling with, and things have been really hard, especially coming out of the pandemic, where people were either laid off or unable to work. And from the federal perspective, I think that we absolutely need to make sure that, one, people can afford not just their mortgage or rent, but also their utilities. Sometimes the difference between making your rent payment or your mortgage payment is, can you afford the gas bill or the electricity bill? And that's why when I had the chance to make sure that people who are struggling right now can make their homes more energy efficient, or that landlords can do that, get those utility bills down and make everything more affordable across the board. That's what we need to be working on.
30 seconds to rebut, Amanda Adkins.
In addition to commenting earlier on the cost of energy in this country, which is a problem in any industry, the other thing that I've consistently heard from people who work in housing is that they're having a hard time finding workers. Over the course of the last 4 years, the last 2 years under a Democratic administration, there has been a heavy focus on not encouraging work in this country. We need to move back to incentivizing and encouraging people to get back into the workforce. Our workforce shortage, I think right now, is roughly at about, there are 11 million jobs that are unfilled in this country. It's a real problem.
Would you like to respond to that, Sharice Davids?
I'm not sure. I'm just not sure who my opponent thinks is not encouraging people to get to get into the workforce. We've done everything we can in my office to make sure that we're supporting our local community colleges for many reasons, but some of those include people wanting to get into the trades or the skilled, into the technical areas. And I think the federal government needs to make those opportunities available to everybody.
COVID barely registers any longer in public opinion polls listing voter concerns, but obesity has risen, diabetes is up, drug and alcohol abuse has increased, and so are cases of depression and mental illness. As a member of Congress, what's the single biggest policy change you would advocate for to improve the health of your constituents, Sharice Davids? Thank you.
I think that absolutely. You've just named off a litany of things that people are really struggling with, from mental health, which, is a huge priority in my office. I want to make sure that people have access to the mental and behavioral health care services that they need. Johnson County, Franklin County, and Miami County. These guys, I know that there's a bunch of people doing that work in our counties. And I've been there to support them. I also think that it's really important for us to make healthcare more affordable. People deserve access to affordable quality healthcare. The Republican Party has tried to dismantle at every turn that access. And I'm really proud that we were able to finally put a cap on insulin at $30 a month for our seniors, and those out-of-pocket expenses for our seniors, because we can't keep taking all of these things away from people and expecting that they're going to be able to stay healthy.
And your number one change you would make in the field of healthcare if you're elected, Amanda Adkins?
Well, Nick, as you know, I've spent the vast majority of my career working in healthcare. My work has been focused on cutting cost in healthcare, making healthcare more affordable, and, as noted earlier, in helping people to be healthier. I think there are a lot of changes we can make in this country related to the cost of medical care and prescription drugs. First, just really quick on medical care. We need to, when we start to look at risk medical care, block grant federal dollars to come straight back to the states, because the states themselves best know how to manage healthcare dollars and what the risks are in a community. In addition to that, the best examples I've seen of results in this country are instances where providers themselves make a decision to create health plans. I just want to make one last comment on prescription drugs. I agree that CMS should be negotiating on prescription drug price, but where the Democrats fell short significantly, having worked for an innovation company, is that when you try to price control, you stack taxes on the backs of innovation companies. All you're doing is discouraging innovation in life-saving drugs, ultimately.
Thank you. 30 seconds to rebut, Sharice Davids.
Yeah, thank you. Medicare is literally the largest purchaser of prescription drugs in this country. If we want to talk about the market deciding, absolutely the federal government should be negotiating prescription drug prices. You know, and if I'm surprised that my opponent thinks the state is best situated to make a bunch of these decisions, the legislature in Kansas, which was Republican-led, expanded Medicaid, and it was Sam Brownback who she
And that is your time there. Amanda Adkins, last word.
Again, I'm going to comment on prescription drug prices because I do think this is an important topic for seniors. I did a lot of negotiating in my healthcare career on drug and medical prices on behalf of Cerner and a lot of employers in this country. So I believe in negotiation. Clearly, the federal government has responsibility specifically for Medicare, which was my second point. Where I have significant concerns for our seniors, having worked for an innovation company, when you start to try to tax and add significant regulation on the backs of business, they're going to make hard decisions. And those hard decisions include less innovation, less investment.
Thank you very much. Lisa Rodriguez with a new question.
And this may open the floor for a number of different topics. Which action by the Biden administration do you support the most, and which do you oppose the most?
How about that, Amanda Adkins?
Well, interestingly enough, I mean, we just talked about part of it, but I only partially support it. Again, I spent more than 15 years of my career in healthcare. Despite what Ms. Davids has shared in her deceptive ads. I spent time building business. I spent time working on affordability in healthcare, as noted earlier. And I do think that prescription drugs is one area where we can come together, but not, in the words of one journalist in the midst of the debate, if we take Vito Corleone-style tactics and we try to negotiate all prices across America. Like, we need to negotiate for Medicare, but we need to protect innovation in this country. Our seniors deserve life-saving drugs as we move into the future that are going to advance medical care. And that's what I'm very concerned about. I'm very, very concerned about innovation and pushing back.
Sharice Davids.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes.
Which action by the Biden administration do you support the most, and which do you oppose the most?
I was thrown off by the Vito Corleone thing. Yeah, look. Everybody knows I'm an infrastructure nerd, and I want to talk about infrastructure, but I'm actually going to talk about the negotiations that just happened where we were finally able to get Medicare to the authority to negotiate prescription drug prices, where we were finally able to put an out-of-pocket cap for our seniors, an annual out-of-pocket cap for their prescription drugs, and we were able to make sure that people who need insulin, which, by the way, doesn't need to be innovated, so it should be available to everybody. We put a cap on that at $30 a month. And, you know, I think the second part, I'm going to have to point to the withdrawal. You know, I already said I'm an Army brat. Knowing that we lost service members in the withdrawal in Afghanistan was heartbreaking to watch, and is something that I think was poorly executed, poorly planned, and something that I was very frustrated, upset about.
30 seconds to rebut, Amanda Adkins.
I would agree that indeed the withdrawal from Afghanistan was absolutely botched and a failure. It was botched, and it was yet another example of a failure on the part of the Biden administration. Service members who lost their lives, equipment left behind, other people who were there serving us, in-country Americans who were left behind for a very long period of time. Look, Ms. Davids, America deserves better. Our executive, our commander-in-chief, has not done a good job, and you consistently have voted with him 100% of the time, and we suffer as a result of it.
The last word goes to you, Sharice Davids.
Thank you. What I've consistently done is support and push for bipartisan bills. 70% of my bills have been bipartisan. And I'm really disappointed to hear my opponent continue to just regurgitate national Republican talking points.
Kyle Palmer, give us a last question, would you, from the Shawnee Mission Post?
We've all watched the last few months as Russia's ongoing unjustified attack against Ukraine has continued. Russian President Vladimir Putin has at least nodded to the possibility of using strategic nuclear weapons during the course of this. As a member of Congress, you may be posed with a decision on how the country responds if this were to happen. How should we respond if Russia uses nuclear weapons in Ukraine?
Sharice Davids?
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, I already talked about this a little bit, but I think it's worth repeating that I have been heartbroken to watch what's happening over in Ukraine. Also, that I have been in the room. I heard directly from President Zelensky on the support that they need. The deployment of a nuclear weapon is a worst case scenario, and that's why we're doing everything we can, from imposing strict sanctions to supporting the Ukrainian people when we can, so that we never have to even address this. But I will always listen to and look to our military leadership when it comes to making decisions of national security importance.
Amanda Adkins.
First of all, just to comment on Ukraine. How disappointed are the American people that in many ways Joe Biden's failed foreign policy has fed into this tragedy? The reason that I say this is everybody knows that previously, when he made the decision to move away from U.S. energy security, U.S. domestic oil and gas production, and rely on countries like Russia, Russia was taking money not only from us, but from some of our allies in Europe, which essentially it's money that has fed into this war, which is a very sad situation. I have publicly said that I do support funding for Ukraine in the situation we're in. By the way, my brother-in-law is a colonel in logistics in the U.S. Army and has directly been involved in some of the supplies and support that have gone over to Ukraine. So I do support it. I do agree that we need to listen to military leaders, but our foreign policy is in shambles and not in a great place. We need to really focus on strategic partnerships as we move into the future. It's a real problem for this country.
Would you like a chance to rebut, Sharice Davids?
Yeah, absolutely. And partly because I've been so concerned about my opponent's, again, embrace of some of the more extreme voices in the Republican Party. And her endorsement from Mike Pompeo, who praised Vladimir Putin even after the unprovoked and aggressive invasion of a democratic sovereign state. I think that is completely unacceptable.
Last word to you, Amanda.
I would just say Mike Pompeo is a friend, and I honor that relationship. I think he was one of the greatest secretaries of state that this country has seen. A strong head of his class at West Point, businessman, very principled, and actually had some pretty huge accomplishments during his time, especially in the Middle East when it came to the Abraham Accords. So, Ms. Davids, I'm sorry, you're wrong. I guess you don't identify strong leaders because you cite Joe Biden as a really good one.
We give each of you an opportunity to make your final case to voters in 60 seconds or less, and your time starts now, Amanda Adkins.
Thank you so much. Well, I appreciate being with all of you today. Again, I'm a business leader, I'm a mother, I've lived in this community for a very, very long time, and I come into this race and I made the decision to run because I have asked people that simple question, are you better off today? As I've said through the course of this debate, we know that people are not better off today. The decisions that have been made have resulted in economic devastation in this country, inclusive of record levels of inflation, an $8,700 hit to households in this community, interest rates rising, heading into a recession. And it is directly the result of some of the votes that have been made by Ms. Davids, inclusive of the American Rescue Plan. And they were warned that it would go down in history as one of the worst decisions ever made by an administration, yet here we're at. I say to all of you, I'm a business leader. I've worked in healthcare. I know this community. I'm Amanda Adkins. I have solutions for this community. I'm a problem solver, and I ask for your vote.
And that's Amanda Adkins, and this is Sharice Davids, and your 60 seconds starts now.
Yeah, thank you so much. Look, I just want to start off by acknowledging that this has been a rough time over the last few years, and that we're having these tough conversations and working together to make progress for Kansas. And it's those tough conversations and working together regardless of party that has produced results. It's why Panasonic chose our district over every other district in the country. It's why billions of federal dollars are coming to this state to invest in our infrastructure. And you're not going to get that kind of bipartisan approach from my opponent. You know, she has aligned herself with very extreme politicians who are looking to decimate Social Security and Medicare, supports a total ban on abortion with no exceptions, not for rape or incest. And look, I have been and will continue to be ready, willing, and able to work with anyone if it means progress for Kansas, because I want our kids to have the same kind of opportunities I had and the same rights that I had. I'm Sharice Davids, and I would be proud to earn your vote.
Who should represent this Kansas district in Congress for the next 2 years? Is it Sharice Davids or Amanda Adkins? Only you will decide. I'm Nick Haynes from my colleagues at the Shawnee Mission Post and KCUR News. Be well, keep calm, and carry on.
The Kansas 3rd District Congressional Debate is a co-presentation of Kansas City PBS, the Shawnee Mission Post, and KCUR News.